Hi, everybody. Just thought I'd take a few minutes here and do a test and record it so that you can all take advantage of it. I'm trying to find out the consistency of two different pencils. I hope that they're one and the same, except it's Koh-I-Noor, made in Czechoslovakia, and they are the manufacturers of the pencil that Blick Studio uses, Blick, and I want to find out so that I can recommend the Koh-I-Noor if it's consistent with the Blick pencil. These are graphite pencils, and I want to be able to find a way to let some of you find it in your country. It's sold in the United States, and I think primarily that's it. And so some of you are not able to buy it, or it isn't as convenient. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a little test here to find out whether that Koh-I-Noor, again, which is made in Czechoslovakia and available in the greater part of Europe and probably a lot of other places I haven't checked. But I want to find out if I'm recommending something that's going to be consistent. I like consistency, and it's really important in my whole process, the 5-pencil method, because consistency and something you can count on is taking away a lot of the pressure to try to vary something, although it allows us for a tremendous amount of variance and freedom and expression, because once we get the consistency that we can count on, then we're able to manipulate things and vary our stroke and the pressure and all those different things, and it adds to our ability to come up with something that's going to really express what we're trying to draw. So this is a 4H on the Blick Studio, and you can see that on there. And this is one of the nice improvements over many of the pencils, and in particular these, is that it's clearly marked. It's very visible. It's a dark blue pencil with that Blick Studio on there, and you can continue purchasing this if you'd like. I will, and I like it because, again, it has a consistent lead. There's always going to be imperfections in pencils, so it's not you're not going to find that it's you have the ability to just eliminate all problems. There might be a little hard place in a lead because it's a mined product, and it depends on the processing and everything that is going to make it more consistent. But for the most part, this is far less problematic than many of the other pencils. The other thing is, years ago, when I was a child, I used to use turquoise. Turquoise was the one you want to look for, and then it was manufactured by a number of companies. One of them, I think, was Eagle and Darrel and Sanford, and then finally it came down to Prismacolor purchased the rights to manufacture this pencil, and then it fell apart. This used to be an unbelievable pencil. Consistent, the Cadillac, or whatever you want to call it, the Mercedes, the Ferrari of the pencils, as far as I'm concerned. I could always count on it. And now I don't use them anymore because of the inconsistency. They moved their manufacturing to Mexico, and that just really, they ran into several problems with it. So I went to the Blick Studio, and you'll see that when in the olden days, it used to be harder to see what pencil this was. That's a 2H. And now they've got that clearly marked at a little larger font, and all the way around on each facet of the pencil. So you can clearly see it, not hiding it when it's laying a certain way or whatever. And so let's go ahead and take this 4H, and I'm going to try and find out if there's a consistency in value, range, and a few things as I do a row of Blick, because this is my standard right now. There are other pencils that work, but I standardize my pressure, and I really depend on the grade because I don't want to have to mess with that. I can vary it all kinds of ways once I get used to what to expect out of each and every pencil. There's a range of value. I almost always have a range of value because anything that's the same value is going to be flat. and I don't want flat. I want to be able to be controlling whether something is going to be flat or have a contour, or suggesting that it's going out of the light and going into the dark, and or coming into the light. And so I am just going to use a standardized pressure and stroke and procedure for each and every pencil. I want to know if the pencil is actually creating the range or the maximum amount of value, or is it my trying to adjust because of my expectations. I want the pencil to do the work for the most part. And then after I get used to that, and I know that I can count on that pencil to be within a certain range, as dark as it'll go, because I'm only using that consistent pressure, and then I go lighter, 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 as if I'm going into the light. And then I want to be able to see this as though I don't really see where it is ending. I just got a little bit of a line in there. So I want this to fade away. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the 2H. Well, notice we should that this is going to be slightly darker with exactly the same amount of pressure. And that range can be created with any of the pencils, any of the grades that you happen to be using, because you start out with that maximum amount of pressure, and also it achieves that full value because of the repetitious stroke. Because every time you put a stroke over another stroke, you're going to end up with something that is a little bit darker until it gets to its maximum. And I want you to be able to have, or I want to have myself, but I'd like you to also be able to have that confidence that you can feel that you're starting to press a little harder. One of the reasons that I try to have the consistency, and I have a consistent pressure, and I also am doing this at an angle, about like so on my paper, is because I want to be able to have that expectation and not have to worry about scoring or damaging the paper because of pressing harder or angling the pencil towards the paper too much where I could end up scoring it. I want to protect that tooth. Can you see that it's gotten a little bit darker than that one? Let's go to the HB. See what that does. We should see a slight increase in value. Not all of a sudden a leap in value, but a consistent increase. Using again the same pressure, the same repetitious stroke, but it's a softer lead. The softer leads are because it doesn't have quite a bit as much clay. And there's a mix. When they process this, they have graphite, which is a mined product again, and they have clay that they use for the harder, that they mix it in with the graphite. Nothing wrong with going back in and looking for that transition, that nice increase in value where there's no gaps in here. It's good, to be able to practice like this as well. It's nice to be able to have, the right coverage, as soon as you start drawing, but it takes practice and you have a feel for it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want you to be able to be very comfortable with your pencil. And I want to be able to glide on and glide off. So that's why you see this softer entry. It's not something that's just a sudden, I'll get it up here where you can still see it. I don't want that, because then I don't have a chance to have a transition into the next lengthening out the value or having a patch up above it. And this, again, if I didn't mention it, this is what I call the patch exercise. This is just part of it, because the patch gives you such a wonderful opportunity to achieve several different things, and one of them is a clean edge. The clean edge is where I start. And I don't want it to be soft or just undefined. I want it to be a clean edge, and I don't want to have a line. Well, we start out with a line, but I want it to be able to be incorporated into the value as I pull away. Okay, there's my HB. I think that's getting a little bit darker as we go. Let's see here. Let's go to the 2B. Same pressure, same range, same feel. I'm using this standard compass stroke that I use with the 5-pencil method. And when you go to the next darkest pencil and the next darkest pencil, you're going to see more imperfections because every line is darker in contrast with the paper more. There are other ones too where we combine them all together, and that becomes another exercise, but you're all prepared for it because you have this anticipation, this expectation of what you're going to be able to see and feel and do with each pencil. So the darker it gets, the harder it is to fade it away, but do the best you can. Let's see how these are a little bit more noticeable, and you can take your kneaded eraser and just tap that off a little bit. But then you can come back in and say, okay, well, looks like I need to maybe fill a couple places, just touch. Just take a little light stroke in there. Okay. I think for the purposes that we are looking for, that is pretty good. Okay, here's my 4B. I'm starting to go downhill, aren't I? Okay, here's my 4B. This is going to be the one with the greatest contrast with the white of the paper. And with nothing underneath of it, which my 5-pencil method, I build things up so that I'm in control of how dark things are going to go. And I want to be able to have that build up because it takes away some of the grain. Because again, this isn't covering everything. There's a few ways we can make it cover a lot better just by using this one pencil, but for the most part I want to be in complete control, and I don't want to have to worry about too much of the paper showing through my patch. The softer the pencil, the softer the grade, the more coarse it is going to seem because again it contrasts with the paper. So you'll see that grain. For whatever reason, that harder pencil just covers quite well. So I kind of refer to it as an undercoating. Okay, but we just want to, we're just looking at value, not all the quality and everything else, even though that's important. The reason I want the quality is because I want the consistency in pressure so that I know that I am having a pencil on one brand that is going to be very consistent with the other one. I'll give it a chance to be, because I am not altering the pressure. Maybe taking an extra stroke through there just to fill a gap or whatever. Okay, there's my 4B. I think they both got this. This is pretty dark. Let me just see. Probably I'm going to go over this one more time and achieve a little more consistency in the dark, just because of repetitious stroke. Remember, every time you put a stroke over another one, in most cases, until you've reached the maximum value, you will have it get a little darker and a little darker. And you should be able to do this enough. It's kind of like a musician doing scales. You should be able to do it enough that you have a very good sense of what kind of pressure and what your expectations should be. And we're all going to vary this a little bit, but you can see it, the increase. I'm going to now go to the Koh-I-Noor. Let's see, let's get that. I just mixed them all up just by moving them over. Okay, let's go with the Koh-I-Noor. Harth, I don't know, Hardtmuth. They didn't do it for my my ability to pronounce it. So, okay, here's the 4H. Now, see, remember, this Koh-I-Noor company, well established in Europe, Czechoslovakia is where it is. They are manufacturing the pencils that I was using above for Blick Studio, or for Blick, and Blick Studio is the model of the pencil. It feels like it's a little bit harder, but I would have to play around with it more and see if I can get this consistent. Pretty close if I remember putting down that last 4H. And let's label them too. Let's go ahead. This is the 4H. This is the 2H. This is the HB. And this is the 2B. And you'll notice I'm skipping one. I don't need that in-between grade. I'm just fine having the ability to vary my pencil. They'll sell you all kinds of different, I mean, not this company, but any art company. They'll sell you every one. There's about maybe as many as 20, grades. Oh, what am I doing? I keep going back to, I want to be thinking about too many things. Okay, there's the B. So now, again, let's just take this a little bit further so we can see a big enough patch that we can get a good feel for it. Should be just like the one above. Unless they do a special recipe for the Blick Studio ones. Okay, let's go to the 2H. And, if I was doing just a patch exercise, I would spend a little more time refining. But I just want that value with some consistency in my stroke and pressure, that I will know how it compares. Fade it away. Okay, let's go to the HB. You'll notice that my stroke too is at an angle, and that's because I'm in a comfortable position to make my stroke, trying to alter, just the way our hands and arms go. I want to be comfortable as I'm addressing my paper, and I don't want to have to pull down straight and be thinking about that. I want to just have a natural stroke, so that it's consistent on every level as much as it can be. I'm going to do another test with more choices, different brands, and things like that. I did one quite a number of years ago. And there are other pencils that are close. I chose the Blick Studio because of the consistency, actually the cost. Besides that, there's several that might achieve very much the same results, and yet these are so much less expensive. Now this is the Koh-I-Noor, though, the one that manufactures that one I'm talking about for Blick Studio. And every time I have a line that's isolated or a little darker than everything else, right in the middle of my range, it's going to become more noticeable. And I want to be able to make sure that my eye doesn't stop at that point. But I can feel the range going into the light, just gradual. Okay, I hope that's it. Seemed like that one was just a little darker. Might have been my variance. I don't know. Okay, let's go to the 2. The 2B. Many companies follow a recipe for the client. They're manufacturing for that company, and the company may have certain criteria or statistical things that they want to achieve. And so they say, well, we want this. And they may give them an example or tell them what the recipe would be. And so there could be some variance. And just because this is Koh-I-Noor that manufactures Dick Blick doesn't mean it would be exactly the same. But I think it is. And naturally, there's an expectation, a standard, I want to be able to meet my expectations and what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to achieve and have all those things. And I draw enough that I know that. It seems like that's getting, I don't like the fact that this looks like it's darker at the front. That's my fault, because I don't want to be left with an isolated line. Everything that has a line becomes a dimension. And I want the dimension to be caused, the separate dimension to be caused by the fact I have a darker edge, and it's either going underneath something without all the light, or it's going around and out of our sight to a darker place. Okay, that was my 2B, and that's going to do with the 4B. Yeah, definitely darker. And that's what we want. We want to see that increase. So I think, it looks like we're going to achieve what we want to, and that is know that we can have a pretty good idea that Koh-I-Noor is going to be consistent with what Dick Blick is doing with their pencils, because they're the manufacturer. Not Dick Blick, but Koh-I-Noor. And then I'll go ahead and look forward to doing a further test with more choices, because everything keeps changing in the art field. And I want consistency. And at least it eliminates a lot of what I'm going to try to do as I draw my subjects. 4B, again, it's tough to get the lines not to show, because it's a lot greater contrast on the actual paper, and there's nothing underneath of it. There's no primer like with a 4H underneath or anything to cut down on the contrast. So, but I don't want to bear down and say, oh, I think this should be darker. Sure, you can make it darker, but there has to be some standard, some consistency that's going to allow you to have an expectation that you can meet. So this is the lightest. I think there's a slight increase. That's what we want. A slight increase. That's what we want. A slight increase. That's what we want. And the 4B, which is the darkest. Now see, I can come in there and I can go much darker by adding more pressure or repetition to my stroke. And I think that this is probably more me, the inconsistency right there. And but I see that incremental increase in value, which is slight, and that's what I want. I don't want it to all of a sudden leap to this value if it's supposed to be that pencil. I don't want the 2B value for a 2H. And then have it maybe go back and be lighter again or whatever. And I've seen that happen with a number of pencils. It's like they didn't even, they didn't even understand how to go ahead and regulate it. So anyway, I just thought it'd be good for us to be able to do that. This is, again, I'm going to get this up here where I can see it. This is the Koh-I-Noor. And this is the Blick Studio. The Blick Studio. Okay, there you have it. All right, that's it. I just wanted to be able to share that with you as long as I'm doing it anyway. I want to know now whether to pursue, it with a greater pencil test, and or where can they be purchased? How wide is their distribution? And the Blick, again, is extremely economical. It's even half and less the price of some of the other higher well-known pencils. And I like it because it's a consistency, and I'm in control, not the pencil. So, all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And see you next time.